Welcome to the Consultant's Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMann and Ransford, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultant's Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMann and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
Thanks for joining us today. This is Anthony Paluska and Dean McMann, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what's going on in our industry and
in the world.
And we will not solve any problems, but we'll have fun talking about them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
First thing I wanted to talk about, and this is kind of just interesting at so many levels. The big effort on the new administration to affect investment is beginning already to cost consulting work.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And that's probably a lot more heavily on the big government specialty practices or firms that only do government, like the, not to pick on Booz Allen, but Booz, as far as I understand it, being an ex-PwC guy, the commercial practice is what went to PwC, is now called Strategy and. But the government practice, which is really big and very successful, is primary, government. So people like that are going to be affected. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in general support of let's make sure that we're taking a good look at our government budget and make sure that we're trying to drive some of this.
Wait a minute. You don't like debt? You don't like debt? I mean, you don't keep a lot of debt at home? Come on.
Yeah, hey, that's fine. But as the interest rate rises, you need to rethink some of these things.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's against the government maybe balancing its budget.
Yes. And so I think there's going to be a lot more of these. The most recent one that kind of prompted our discussion here was they just yesterday canceled 22 consulting contracts totaling $45 million. And that was just the two big categories that I think they found were around executive coaching and strategic communications, which are very, as consultants.
Hard to believe there's executive coaching going on in the federal government.
Yeah.
But I would bet, and now that you said that, I hadn't thought about this when you mentioned it earlier, but I bet those projects are part of a stream of a bunch of projects. So if you stop them, you probably stopped hundreds of millions of dollars already.
Yeah. And I mean, these are, I don't know how long they were, but $2 million engagements to focus on strategic communication.
But they were going to roll over. And
Yeah.
And I want to admit, full disclosure, I have literally never been on a government project.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. I was on one. But, but rarely, and so I really don't know that, I know it's a procurement, getting government contract, and I know that's all different. But, man, this could end up being a lot of money taken out of the consulting firms' budgets.
Yeah. No, it's going to have, I think it'll have a huge ripple effect on the industry. I think for a long time, consulting organizations have been able to take advantage of the lack of buying discipline that the government has compared to corporate buyers and oversight there. And so I think
different discipline.
Yeah.
A procurement process, but
not managing them to the outcomes and all of those kinds of things.
And we're not in any way minimizing the complexity of having to deal with the government.
No.
It's a different buying cycle than corporate. That's all.
Yeah. And so big picture, I think it's probably good for the government to at least evaluate all of these things and make some decisions on, are we getting the value out of this that we intended to? But the ripple effect on, especially as that number multiplies as they roll into more and more topics, is going to be significant. We're going to land with a lot of government work, consulting work for the government, inevitably, because consultants can still add a lot of value there. But bringing a little scrutiny is
I wonder
going
if
to be
there are going to be consulting projects helping
I would imagine.
Cut consulting projects.
I would imagine.
Yeah. So somebody's up there doing all the work on that. The other thing is, I was thinking about the Washington, D.C. economic model, which is so government-centric, so federal government-centric, that if we do indeed trim an awful lot of people and and you always have to, no matter how they got there, no matter how bad the government's poorly run or whatever, those are real people that have jobs, right? So I think we're going to have a negative impact on growth and therefore interest rates if they end up laying off or the consultants and all those employees. I think that's an interesting thing to see how it works out. And tariffs drives the other side. Tariffs will increase price. So we've got this massive maybe unemployment tick up, but we also have a more expensive avocados. Yeah. And hey, we're both from Texas, so more expensive avocados.
I'm allergic to avocados, so I actually don't mind that at all.
That's true. And you used to not eat sushi, but you got over that.
We can have 300% inflation on avocados, and it's not going to affect my life one bit.
Yeah. How about your kids and your wife?
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Okay.
There's not a lot of avocados in my house because I cook the meals and I don't put avocado in it. And so they like avocado, but it's not going to affect.
We're going to have his kids come over to my house and we'll give them real avocados. Anyway, so that's an interesting whole problem set. We'll keep track of that and we'll report back on how it's affecting the industry. I think that no other place are so many consultants going to be affected, I think, with our economic situation than that. And it could be, I don't know how much government consulting goes on, and I don't know how much is just contract people, but I bet it's billions and billions of dollars spent, and a big dent in that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that is going to be just a reshuffling of where and how the consulting firms focus their time and attention. I think largely the number of layoffs that are impacted by that at the consulting firm level is probably pretty limited, as some of that money gets pushed back into the private economy, and then some of that stuff needs to be spent by corporations, and the other parts of the consulting practices will end up bolstering more of their focus and attention there. I think it'll balance itself out a little bit. It'll be a pretty seismic event in the short term, but long term, I think it's just a reshuffling.
Yeah, but if you're a government specialist, that doesn't happen to you. Commercial people can kind of, I think, flow between, I'm a 28-year-old and, I'm with this SaaS company, or I'm with one of the big firms and I can move to another one that's growing or another. I don't know if government is that, although probably security, IT security, those are probably
and
very
that's two topics that we just talked about. Executive coaching, strategic communication, those are very transferable things if
they
applied
are.
To those others.
Sure they are.
So we'll see what those specific projects are.
There might be much more sophistication required on the corporate side, but yeah. So another just thing we were talking about earlier, we hear a lot about this now, is the PS in product companies, particularly SaaS, more so, at least we're hearing from them more, really coming over and doing more traditional consulting, using more traditional consulting skills, trying to upsell more, trying to take clients more, and less just implementation. I would love to know, and maybe we should do like a large survey, on that topic. I'd love to know, are we just hearing that because of the people we talk to? Is that really a movement? And what does that movement mean?
Yeah, I'd love to go deeper on it. We might have a little bit of a bias because the kinds of people that we are talking to and are focusing on these problems are already the kinds of people that are predisposed to thinking about controlling their own destiny within their organization, taking it to a more strategic place, what have you. So we definitely see it with almost everybody we're talking to. What I can't tell at the moment is that a shift from a corporate mandate perspective that's saying, professional services, you used to be pulled through into all these situations and your primary focus was to drive implementations and adoption of our technology and make sure all that works. And now we need you to do more and be more of the differentiation
engine. Some of it
engine.
Clearly is that.
Yep, tip of the spear, that sort of thing. Or if that's we're getting a bunch of leaders in these professional services organizations within tech industry that are saying, looking at their business and saying, there's so many more things we can impact. How do we grow and build our team to do that? I don't know where the pressure is coming from, and it's probably a little bit of both, but it's definitely going to represent a huge change in offer strategy and pricing model and talent development. And it's going to change a lot of those organizations as they look to take on more of that role.
And I'm happy about that, but not just for us, but I'm happy about that because it gives a better career.
Yeah.
But I heard someone the other day, and I like this, so I'm going to repeat it, that PS done well, more consultative, is the ultimate sticky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because SaaS and hardware is this way too. They can be replaced easily.
Yeah.
So what makes us sticky is what we used to call owning the customer and solving customer problems. Once you've done that, you're viewed differently, and little disruptions and price problems, kind of can get operated below the safety line, and you can be a real partner. So again, one of the things we're going to keep track of, if that is a major movement, that is wonderful for individuals in the and leaders get to do more, and maybe their bosses will even understand what they do.
Well, yeah, yeah, so let's
put a pin in it.
Well, no, I would like to dive deeper into it with some data to validate some of this stuff, because look, let's be honest, for 30 years, the firm has been focused on basically solving that exact problem. So the kinds of people that we're talking to are the kinds of people that are already on that particular topic. And so I just don't know if we have some sort of selection bias based on the kind of people that engage with us. Is the professional services, of course, needs to be more strategic.
We do touch 8,000 or so PS leaders a week. And as we talk about that, I'd really be interested in people joining in that conversation. I do really want to understand that. We have both two people coming on near term. One, Bob Wright, who is really in touch always where technology firms are going, high growth technology firms are going, and he's got, I'm sure, some thoughts on that. And then we have from TSIA, Bo. And Bo is, they put out the what's going on all the time. So we'll touch base with them, but it's never as good as hearing from the real people.
No.
Because
so
everybody comes with a bias.
If somebody's a PS leader out there and you are saying, we focus primarily on implementation,
and we're not moving,
and product, and we want to double and triple down on that rather than expand that, we'd like to understand why and how that fits into the overall strategy, because that's just not something we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah. All right, so big movement in enterprise software marketplace. Yes. Hearing a lot about this, and I think.
Before you dive in, let me
introduce the whole topic.
Yeah, this came in from a survey that was conducted by Future CIO, and that organization does a lot of research and deep dive into what the IT space in general is, how it's performing, why are people buying, why are they not buying, where are their primary focus areas and pain points, and so they're always staying on top of that topic. They recently did a study on the key challenges or barriers to buying new enterprise software, which of course is a huge driver of a lot of professional services work and all those sorts of things.
And it has become a term to mean so much more than enterprise software used to mean. Yeah. Now it kind of just means big company buying software.
Yep.
It used to mean your whole enterprise. It used to be the SAP, the Oracle movement, and the ERP and stuff. But now,
and as those enterprise softwares, however you define them, touch more and more functions and span across the organization a little bit broader, this has gotten a little bit more complex, and I think the data suggests it. So I'll read four of the top 5 reasons why people aren't buying. The 5th one that I'm not going to talk about is actually pricing model flexibility, which of course that's always a reason, right? But the other ones all have another common theme. So the top one was the lack of consensus within their organization on the outcomes that they're actually looking for from the software itself. So we want to buy software, but we can't agree on what we want the software to do. The second one is the confidence in the vendor's ability to actually meet those needs. So let's say we can agree on it. How do we know that we've been burned so many times with huge software purchases and implementations? How do we know this is going to be successful this time? And then the other two are the inability to get consensus on the actual vendor, which I think is related to those first two, and the inability to get consensus on the key product features that they're actually looking for, which again, all of those start to fit together a bit to me, but they all suggest a big roadblock or an obstacle that all these software companies are having to solve for, which is how do we stand out and how are we different and how do we inspire confidence in our buyers that we can actually get outcomes, and we can help you understand the outcomes you should even be aligned on and looking for.
Yeah, this is really interesting in so many ways because, the software industry has lived off of waves of change, right? You can go, anywhere you want to go, they're riding a wave. Right now it's AI, right? Everybody got to buy AI. Then it was off premise, and it does, you can pick them.
Yep.
And then they end up as bubbles and stuff. So maybe, is it the buyers are becoming more thoughtful? I hope so.
Yeah.
Is it we've been burned so many times before? And I true, complete confession, I was COO of a big enterprise software company at one time. And, if you bought our software, you were on a journey as a partnership, but not everything worked day one, right? And that's gotten better. But I'm not sure that's not a good situation for the partnership between technological buyers and technological sellers to become more mature about how we do this, not just ride the waves, not just, not just let IT spend it as much as they want it. And you and I've talked about this one example so many times. We were working with a company, and I will leave their industry, their country, everything off because that's not kind. But anyway, they were talking about the cost of investing in the work we were doing to transform their market interface and change their valuation. And I happened to ask the CEO, really great guy. I said, "How much are you spending on your ERP?" They already had ERP, but they did acquisitions. They had several, project. 8 times what they were spending for us to change their valuation. And I said, don't you find that interesting that this is strategically important, reporting to the CEO, and that is something you never see and you're willing to spend 8 times about it? He goes, yeah, we never look at that budget that way. Mm-hmm. And maybe they are now.
Yeah. Hopefully that's what's happening. And that 8 times the budget probably didn't even factor in all of their team's cost and time over
just one vendor, not even all the other IT projects going on with other consulting firms.
Yep. My wife works for a big oil and gas company, and she's in HR, and they're going through a process of evaluating a vendor to roll out a bunch of new HR technology, right? And they're going into that whole process. They're meeting with a large consulting firm they've already picked the technology that they're going to buy. This week is the pre-meeting to the rollout meeting next week, and it is taking 8 or 10 people all day, 5 days this week to just meet with the consulting firm to align on the strategy for what needs to happen. And they've got 20 or 30 people in there themselves. And then next week, it's an even larger group from her organization, plus the consulting firm's whole team. I mean,
so they've already shown technology and a consulting firm.
They've already chosen all of that stuff, and they've already spent that money in that process. But and when they think about the cost of implementing all of that, they've thought about the cost of the consulting organization to do the implementation. They've thought about the technology cost, but
not the internal cost.
The fact that 10 to 20 internal people have to be occupied for 2 whole weeks just to get organized on the kickoff for this program, I mean, it's just this hidden cost associated with it. And so not surprising that there's just lack of internal consensus on if I'm going to sign up for all that time and investment, let's make sure that I'm getting exactly what I need.
And I think that is one of the big things because, I meet with a lot of CEOs, and when they talk about a technology change, they don't talk so much about price. They talk about lost time, and they talk about distraction. So when you talk about enterprise, I think that's a great example. And that's a huge organization and a big HR organization. But if you look at the overall cost to do that over a couple of years, man, you got to get a lot of benefit and change and impact to warrant that journey. So here we are at this great moment after, almost becoming physically ill on the wave after wave after wave of the last 20 years to figure out the headwinds for enterprise software. And when we talk to SaaS companies, often they say, hey, we've already done the land grab anyway.
Yeah.
So there's not that many more for us. how do we continue to make money?
Well, and it goes back to the point that we were on just before this on the shift of just are your PS teams or your implementation teams, I mean, is that what they're doing? Or are they guiding, advising, driving client outcomes, that sort of thing? I think this lack of internal consensus and this uncertainty about whether or not we actually want to make this shift and how do we even choose a vendor, I think those that are winning and will continue to win are those that can actually help facilitate a client through that alignment journey and that buying process, even before they've bought or decided on the technology they're going to use. Instead, like let's
and that
let's
is
help.
a much different view than during the land grab. And in this case, your example from your wife's company is they are not relying on the technology vendor. They already went and got one of the big firms.
They picked the firm to pick the vendor, but the firm didn't do any of the strategy work of helping them align and organize internally. They had a predisposition towards one or two software companies that they know how to implement and drive, and they're running it all through. I mean, just secondhand, I can kind of tell they're running it all through the implementation and the enterprise team that's all offshored and resources, and instead of the strategy team of what actually needs to happen organizationally and what outcomes are you looking for, and then what software do you have. They're leading with the software and then figuring out how to fit that in rather than saying strategy to software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So one more thing today, and I think this is really interesting. Talk us through what's going on in the big aha on AI the last couple
Well,
of
I'll let you react to the quote that I found interesting, which was, right, this is on the heels of DeepSeek coming out at a fraction of the cost to actually stand up and train this model and run this compared to OpenAI. And we can debate how much do we believe that number that DeepSeek has publicized that, hey, this is what it actually cost us, and how replicable is that without maybe some lifting some trade secrets from the OpenAI group that may or may not have happened. But let's assume for a second that
there's some truth
they have
in the
demonstrated an ability to do this at a much more cost efficient and effective level than any of the other AI companies or the generative AI companies have rolled out a solution before. The CEO of SAP came out just this past week and said, "This is wonderful news for our business, right? And for enterprise software companies globally, is that the news about DeepSeek's ability to come up with a cost-effective solution." So you had an interesting take on why the SAP might feel this way.
Yeah. So historically, we looked at companies like SAP, Oracle as giant and lots of resources, but compared to Google, Meta, they don't have all that available. I mean, that's why Oracle did the announcement recently about AI. So they don't have that unlimited thing. So if we're commoditizing investment this rapidly, even mid-sized technology firms are going to be able to play. And that is great for them, because if you were locked out of this wave, then you're beholden to someone who's going to attach to your product. And if there are three dominant products and you choose who you play with, you're just an extension of Google or whoever. Right. Doesn't matter. So I think that is a big deal. And it's going to be really interesting. Like you said, do we believe everything we're told about it? It doesn't really matter. Some of it's true.
Yeah.
Right? And the next few months are going to tell us a lot as more things come out of the marketplace, more AI, maybe the next year. But yeah, I think that's really good for the industry and good for everyone, because you don't have to be one of the deepest pocket companies in the world to be able to play. And AI is so, I don't know anyone who's not already getting significant value and benefits out of it.
Right.
Although it is funny, when I talk to some people, I was talking to someone who's not in the workforce right now, retired but probably come back. They've done really well, but they were like, "Hey, I asked it a question and it wasn't right." And I was like, well, that's not the point.
Yeah.
That's not the point, to be accurate on every single esoteric thing you ask it.
Yeah, quality will get better at an accelerated rate, and cost will get cheaper at an accelerated rate, and
But
it opens
if it's this accelerated, that's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's been a fun conversation today.
Yeah,
Anything else you want to add?
No. I think this was great. A couple of good topics this time. Interested if anybody else has any topics that you want us to cover on future episodes, connect with us both on LinkedIn. Let us know or send us an email at podcast@consultantsway.com. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Take care.